Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at an Echo CS310 chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it bogs. It just bogs. Well, let's look into the fuel tank and see what he's trying to burn in here. Initial appearance is, it's alright. The filter's attached to the hose. I don't see any water rolling around in the bottom of the tank. But that filter's got a kind of weird look to it. It's very dark gray. It's not something I usually see. I'm going to pressure test this fuel line by putting 10 pounds of pressure on it. And it appears to be holding, and that tells me that there's no holes or cracks in the fuel line and that the carburetor's tight. So for now, we're just going to throw that filter back on there and keep sniffing around here and see if there's anything else to find. Let's pop the hood on this and take a look underneath. So it's a little dusty underneath here. You know, this is a homeowner grade saw, probably run by a homeowner who just he's not into chainsaws. He just needed a saw to do a job, right? The chain was dull and he was horsing on it. There's a lot of fines underneath there. Looks like the spark arrestor screen is okay. It's not plugged up.
Sorry.
I'm going to take a look inside the cylinder and see what it looks like in there. General appearance of this saw, my impression is that it's not very old. It gets light use, but it doesn't get maintained very well. I should say it doesn't get cleaned very well because that air filter doesn't look trashed. He's either cleaning it or he's replaced it. Inside the cylinder looked clean and shiny. There's no scratches or scores, so we're good to go there. We'll put the plug back in here. I want to take this thing for a run and see what he's experiencing. I'm not sure what I'm thinking about here, but I'm tapping the finger again. Now we're going fishing. We're going to test the tank vent. So I remove the filter and I'm going to remove the line from the carburetor that comes from the fuel filter. So now what I have is a tank that's sealed except for the tank vent and where I'm going to put this pump. So I'm connecting my Mighty Vac to it and I'm setting it to pull vacuum. And what we want to find out is if that tank vent is any good. And it is, because it won't pull vacuum. If that tank vent was plugged or locked or not working, then I'd be able to put a vacuum on there. Looks like I made a mess. So we've ruled out a plugged tank vent as a reason for the bog. This is a 2020 model, 5 years old at the time of this repair. And I look at the date on it to kind of get an idea, is the possibility of the metering diaphragm in the carburetor being stiff. It's 5 years old. I guess it's possible. At some point here, I kind of changed gears and went directly for the carb because my initial intent was to run this. But everything in the tank looked good. The tank wasn't Tank vent wasn't plugged. Everything in the cylinder looked good, and the spark arrestor screen wasn't plugged. So we're chasing a bog. It could be in the carburetor, or it could be a massive air leak. Well, look at the dirt on there. It's always the carb, right? That's the attitude anyway. So we're going to look at the carb, and it's easy to do. And even if I was going to pressure test this, the carb's got to come off anyway to do that. Looks like the manifold is tight there. We're just going to block that off and keep the schmutz out of there while I clean this up a little bit. Alright, it's interesting to note that the limiter screws or limiter caps are missing. So somebody's been playing here. We're going to take a look at the fuel pump. You know, initial reaction is the cover looks good, the pump's not too stiff. There's our micro screen. Almost lost the carburetor. And it really doesn't look that bad. There's fuel on top of it. You're really getting clumsy with that thing. Just kind of dabbing that fuel out of there. And it's still, the screen doesn't really look bad. But if you look really close, there's something going on there. We're going to pull it out and take a closer look at. You know, normally we'd see a lot of dirt in there or something. Boy, I'm clumsy today. Let's get a light on the subject and take a closer look at that screen. We're going to put a light behind it and shine it through the screen. Well, you can see that no light passes through that screen. So whatever's plugging that thing up has got it plugged tight. And I mean, that looks like an eclipse right there. I can see nothing through it. I don't know what would cause that. I mean, the fuel filter had that gray look to it, and so does this screen. Is it a fuel additive? I'm not sure. I also see that there's a K marked on top of this metering chamber cover. You know, I don't remember ever seeing any initials on other Echo carburetors. Maybe K is the guy that removed the limiter caps. I don't know. I gotta start paying attention to more Echoes as I pull them apart and see if there's any marks on them from people who have assembled them. So we talked about the saw being 5 years old and the possibility of the metering diaphragm being stiff. It's not bad, but I have this thing torn apart. It's right in front of me. I'm going to put a new kit in it. So these kits, depending on which kit you're using, they might come with more gaskets than you actually need. And you can see this one does. And it's no big deal, you just match up your old gasket with the new ones. Right now I'm loosening the screw that holds down the cross shaft for the metering lever. The metering lever holds the needle. There's the shaft and the lever. Here's a needle. We loaded the new needle on the new, well, I didn't even think I used the new metering lever. But we loaded it on the metering lever. We're setting it down on top of the spring and then screwing it down and locking it in place. So we got a new needle. Now we want to check the metering lever height. There's I'm going to use this universal tool here. It's got some Walbro and Zama models on here. And you just find your model that you're using. This is a WT carburetor. And then that's the side of the tool that you're going to use to check the height. You lay the tool across the top sides of the carb. And the end of the tool should just touch the metering lever. And if it doesn't, then you just physically bend the lever till it's right. So here I'm bending it up just a little bit. And I've determined that it looks good. If I bent it too far, then what I'll do is I'll hold the lever down in the area of the needle and then push down in the area where the metering diaphragm touches the lever and bend it back down. So here's the gasket we want, and then we'll put the metering diaphragm in place. And we'll drop the cover with a initial K on it. I might have to start putting some little greasy shop rag logos on there or something. Alright, 4 screws hold this in place. We'll get this snugged down. This battery powered screwdriver has been working out really well for me. Alright, fuel pump side. We removed the old micro screen, so we're going to have to put a new one in. Now, I would never even attempt to clean that other one. I don't know what that stuff was that was in there. So I just lay the new one on top, and then we got to push it down into place and kind of seat it in there. And I'm going to use a bit from the screwdriver to push it down. That looks good. Kind of looks the same as it did when we took it apart, but this one's not full of schmutz. Now we're going to need a fuel pump. If you have choices, the brown Teflon pumps are the better pump. More resistance to ethanol and more durable. You see, the old carb was not using the Teflon pump. Here's our gasket and then our fuel pump cover. If you have to move the throttle linkage to get the cover to clear, just push it off to the side so that idle stop screw isn't keeping you from laying the cover down square. And there we go. A quickie carb refresh. We could have pulled the high and the low speed needles out and blown through those, but we didn't. Alright, on goes our fuel line and then our choke lever. Here's our throttle linkage. And a fuel line on the other side. And we'll snap that throttle linkage down into place at the trigger handle. Kind of line everything up here before we put the air filter base in place. This is kind of a different design here with this air filter base. Not in how it functions, just in the way it looks. I mean, 3 screws hold it down. I'm just not a big fan of this particular filter. It seems to let a lot of stuff around the plastic seal of the filter to the base. Because every time I open one of these up, I find some debris inside. But there you go, it's in place. That little bail just kind of holds it there. And then we got our hood. It's not a bad design for the hood. Alright, we're going to put some fuel in here. I think our filter is still off though. Go fishing again. It's a lot harder to find that fuel line when there isn't a filter on the end of it. But we have our little clamp. We're going to put that over the line first and then a new filter. Look at the difference in color of this new one. Alright, we're going to put some shop mix fuel in here. Spill a little bit. We're going to try and run this saw. And if it starts and runs and doesn't bog, then that's all I'm going to have for you on the Echo CS310 chainsaw that bogged because it had a plugged micro screen. Thanks for watching. Later.